Of course, we're just getting warmed up with layer masks, and as you can see, they're very, very easy to work with. What's interesting to note, too, is a lot of the masking that we're using here inside Photoshop, whether it's an alpha channel or a layer mask or what have you, it all functions in exactly the same way, which makes it certainly a heck of a lot easier to work with. Now, I promised you a couple of different ways to initiate a layer mask, and in the previous exercise, you saw a very easy way for initiating a layer mask. Let me show you another way. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and revert. I'm going to head to the File menu and then all the way down to Revert, or you could hit F12 on your keyboard if you want to. So all I'm doing is I'm going all the way back to when you and I had first opened up the file. There we go. So I'm all the way back to the 3 trucks there. I don't have a layer mask inside the Layers panel. What I'm going to do this time, and this is very similar to how we started with our Quick Mask, is we're going to get started with some kind of a selection to help us out at first. So what I'm going to do is I'll start things off inside the Layers panel. Once again, I'll double click on the background layer to convert this guy to a regular old normal layer, and I'll call this Blue Truck one more time, or you could just leave the default, that's fine as well. And we could use any of our selection methods that we want. We've seen a lot of different ways to work with selections. Once again, though, I think maybe what I'll do is I'll work with my color range. So back up to the Select menu and then down to Color Range. Now, I'm going to change things up here a little bit. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to try and select the truck, even though it's the blue truck that I want. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and select the background. I'm going to try and isolate the background, thus inverting the selection, if that makes sense. So in other words, it's the truck that I'm after, so I'm going to select the opposite of the truck. Okay, so I'm going to grab the background here, try and grab the background area. There we go, something like that, right? I might want to hold down Shift and try and grab some other areas in there. But notice that I am grabbing the white trim on the blue toy truck. That's okay. We can always work with that. So I've got this selection happening here. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And that should give me marching ants. There's my marching ants. So it isn't the greatest selection in the world, but again, harking back to the quick mask mode, we didn't need a perfect selection before we got started. We could work with a basic raw selection, if you'll recall. So I'm going to head up to the Layer menu up at the top, and then down to Layer Mask, and notice we have a bunch of options in here. Reveal All, Hide All, Reveal Selection, Hide Selection, or From Transparency. Now, I'm going to go Hide Selection. Go ahead and choose the same guy there. And check this out. Any area that was selected is now filled in with this checkerboard pattern, if I zoom in just a little bit here, including, by the way, that white trim on the blue truck. And notice my layer thumbnail as well, my layer mask thumbnail. He's obviously updated as well. So that's looking pretty good. It's a good starting point, but I still have lots of work to do here. So what I would have to do at this point is head back to the toolbox, grab my paintbrush tool, and then continue on adjusting this layer mask. So in other words, once again, using black to erase away any content that appears on the outside of the blue truck, and using white to fill in areas of the blue truck that I want to keep, for instance, that trim around the front and the side. So I'm going to tap the X key on my keyboard, and I'll just start filling that area back in, something like this, right? So it's going to take a little while for me to get everything looking absolutely perfect. But again, this is just another way to go about working with your masks, right? Now, there's some other tricks that I want to show you as well. I mean, what we could do, I suppose, we could zoom way in on this guy, even closer, something like this. And then what we could do is we could reduce down the size of our brush and begin working our way around the object, something like this. It's going to take some time. But again, you know what I always think of is, where am I going to be using this image? If he's just going to be a thumbnail on a website, then I probably won't spend a massive amount of time on it. Obviously I want it to look decent, but you don't want to spend an entire week doing this just for a thumbnail on a website. But again, if it's going to be maybe a poster or a flyer or, heaven forbid, a billboard, something like that, then obviously I'm going to take my time on this and do as best a job as possible, right? So there you go. Now, as I say, there's some other techniques that I want to show you as well. Let's check that out next.